Hey guys, welcome back. Gun Living Patriot here. I'd like to welcome you to what will forever now be known as the Minutemen podcast. Like I said last week, I like to start off these things with giving a little shout out to people that help to make the Second Amendment greater. Whether it be products that people have come up with or just people in general who like to help further along the cause of the Second Amendment. And this week, I wanted to. It's not much, and it doesn't necessarily pertain to items to make the Second Amendment greater, but it is, in retrospect, what made the Second Amendment in the first place. And so I want to give a little shout out to the Heritage Foundation. When I was in Dallas, they were actually just giving these out. It's a small little booklet, and it's got the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. Both of them are in this little booklet. And I wanted to shout out to them because in today's society, not very many people actually know the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution. And those that say they do try and quote it or try and change it, and they don't really understand the Second Amendment or any of the amendments of the Constitution or anything that pertains to the Constitution in general. So this is something, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's pocket size. You can carry it in your pocket. Since I've gotten it, I've kept it in my book bag. When I carry my book bag places, this is always with me. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them. I mean, this thing is pretty cool. And I actually think that everybody should have one, considering how few people actually know what's in the Constitution. With that being said, this week I want to talk about, and if you guys follow me on Twitter, you probably would have seen a tweet that I put out. Earlier this week, I had a very interesting conversation with someone on Twitter, and after going to her Twitter page and finding out a little bit about her, I found out she is a activist. She's an activist that is a part of the Moms Demand Action Group. And we had a very civil conversation back and forth on Twitter. We were constantly talking, bringing our own viewpoints as to the Second Amendment and what it means to each of us. And at one point, the argument kind of shifted, and I could tell it wasn't going to go anywhere. So I started posing questions because I wanted to see her actual viewpoints on certain things. And so the first thing I asked was, what do you with all these mass shootings that's going on, and that was one of the big issues that we were talking about was mass shootings and how we could curb these school shootings and stuff from taking place, or kind of fix some of the problem. And so I was bringing up a couple points, and she had hers, but I asked her. I said, what is your goal? What do you want to see happen? And if you want, you can go on my page and you can scroll down and see everything that I talked about and everything that she talked about, and we can go from there. But I started to question her because we see a lot of these people that come out and the protesters and these students that come from these schools, that you have these school shootings, and they always demand gun reform now. Like I said last week, it's always about the gun reform. It's always about changing the way that people look at guns. And she flat out told me that she wanted a ban on all those. And she said she wanted a 10-round mag capacity like what New York City had. Come to find out, she's from New York City. But we were talking, and I asked her, I said, legally, because her whole argument was, we need to ban high-capacity magazines, and we need to ban on semi-assault style weapons. And so I started asking her to define what she was saying. And that's where it got a little tricky for her. I mean, I'm not trying to bash this woman at all. I mean, she was really intelligent. However, this is the argument that we see every day now when it comes to firearms. And the one thing that I want to bring to everybody's attention, and those that are watching, if you have gun debates with people, if you debate people over the Second Amendment and what people believe the Second Amendment should entail and what it shouldn't, coming from someone who was anti-gun for the longest time and then changed their mind, I ask that when you talk to these people, ask them to define what they're talking about. And that's the one thing that when I was talking to her and I asked her to define what she was explaining, she couldn't. You know, she asked for a ban on high-capacity magazines. So I asked her, what considers a high-capacity magazine? And she couldn't explain it. So then I asked her what, with the semi-assault style weapon, I asked her, what is a semi-assault style weapon? And she couldn't give me an answer. And then she changed the subject a little bit to, what do you think it is? So the main focus here is, what is the definition? Explain to me why you say what you say. Because you've got a lot of people that are pushing all these leftist talking points. And I said this last week. It's what I knew. Everything that goes on, it's spoon-fed to all these people by the upper elites. And they think that they know what they're talking about, but they really don't. This lady, she apparently is an advocate for Moms Demand Action, which I don't know how big the group is, but you would expect someone who proudly displays that logo on her page to kind of know what she was talking about. Now, from the standpoint of her trying to get rid of guns, yes, you could say she knows what she's talking about. But when it comes to what an actual gun does or what an actual gun is, or the certain types of firearms that are out there that they're trying to get rid of, but they don't really know what they're talking about, you can see all these people that are doing this and nobody's challenging them on what they're saying. They're just arguing. You can argue all you want, but these people aren't going to change their mind if they always think they're right. So my thing is, arguing won't get you anywhere, but sit there, have a conversation. You know, everything I was polite to this lady, didn't call her any names, tried to be as positive as possible, but at the same time, I was honest. And there are definitions that she tried to explain that it's not what she's actually meaning. And that's why I was kind of pushing the envelope a little bit. I was trying to get her uneasy so she could try and see where I was coming from. Eventually it got to the point where she just stopped talking to me. So I mean, if she's watching this, that would be pretty cool. I kind of would like to continue this conversation, you know, if you want to get back on Twitter or if you want to meet me in person, you know. I would love to just sit down and have a conversation with you. Anybody, really, that feels that anti-gun is the way to go. Find some of us that are that love guns. Find some of us that are very pro-Second Amendment and just sit down and have a conversation with us. For those that are pro-Second Amendment and want to have a conversation with those that are against it, be polite, be honest, but make sure that you know what you're talking about when you go in, because the biggest thing that I hate out of all this other stuff that's going on is how many people don't know what they're talking about. And that goes on both sides. I mean, that's pro-gun people and that's anti-gun people. There are people, when they get into a gun debate, they don't know what they're talking about. And the good thing about having it online, having it over Twitter, is that yes, you can go and you can Google answers and you can try and find articles that relate to what you're talking about. But when you're actually having a face-to-face conversation, it's a little bit harder. That's why you need to be prepared. Just the bickering back and forth isn't going to solve anything, and that's why we need to have an actual dialogue. Having dialogue will actually help change things, and you see people on both sides of the aisle that actually are honest and they want to sit down, they want to have a dialogue, and that's fine. I'm all for it, but I want it to be honest. I don't want this butting heads back and forth. I want us to have an honest conversation. That's the only way things for the Second Amendment are going to change, is if we sit down and we actually know what we're talking about when we talk about it. With that being said, I do want to start a new segment that I do every so often. It's just a little fun, but it's also something that I want to do that's a little informative. You see me all the time on Twitter that's constantly going after our Senator Dick Durbin for the state of Illinois about gun stuff. When it comes to everything else, I'll let him have his little moment. But when it comes to guns, I kind of want to nip it in the bud. I kind of want to get the facts out there for what he's arguing when he's arguing it on Twitter. Again, though, if Dick Durbin or anybody anti-gun would love to sit down and have a conversation, I would like to set up a meeting. I'd like to set up like a big group setup where multiple people from both sides of the aisle would want to come and sit down and just talk. Dick Durbin does a bunch of stuff, and he posted all over his Twitter page about how he's meeting with all these anti-gun people, and he hears what they have to say about school safety and all this other stuff. But yet we don't see him sitting down and talking to people that are actually pro-gun, that want to help, but that want to do it from a different angle. And so with this new segment, I want to a little bit poke fun, but I still want to get the facts out there. And so what I want to do is pull a couple, tweets here and there, depending on how I feel in the mood and stuff about what he put on Twitter. And I just want to address them so that people can see them. Because I don't know if you follow Senator Dick Durbin. I don't know if you live in Illinois or if you're watching from somewhere else. But Senator Dick Durbin has come out and is knowingly very anti-gun. And he's constantly posting on Twitter and on social media about how we need to curb gun violence, how we need to do all this and all that. And he never really gets to an actual answer. He posts stuff that's kind of vague, but yet it gets a rise out of those that are very anti-gun, and they're all supportive of him and all that other stuff. Like what he put this Monday, he stated, "We have to keep speaking out in support of common sense gun safety reforms. If we do, we will be able to beat the gun sales lobby and save lives. Hashtag Monday Motivation." So, I don't know if you saw that. I don't know if you've seen my response to that. It's on Twitter. My big thing is, you want to sit here and you want to push for more lives to be saved. You want to push for common sense gun safety reforms. But I never hear an actual dialogue. I just hear I hear this, it's every week. It's almost every day now, where they're pushing for gun safety reform, where they're pushing for common sense gun safety reform. Give me an example of common sense. Give me an example of some reform that you want to impose so that we can enact it. They don't give you a definite answer. So it's not about saving children's lives, because if it were, they would be more worried. Dick Durbin himself would be more worried about his city of Chicago and fixing the crime that is going on with gang violence than going after all these mass shooting incidents and trying to make gun reform. The reason they want gun reform is to restrict our rights so that the government can tell us what to do without any sort of repercussions. And that's a problem. We need to fix it to where the gun rights don't change for the law-abiding citizens, but yet students and teachers and other faculty at schools and other places where it's a gun-free zone, those people are safe as well. The main thing, we need to get rid of gun-free zones. Shocker, I know, it's such a big ordeal. People shouldn't have guns where there's students, where there's kids. Oh, heaven forbid if a kid found a teacher with a gun. We need to get rid of gun-free zones. After we do that, we need to enact stricter laws on criminals. And this, if you look back at what I said about the lady from my last segment, we talked back and forth. She asked different things that we need to do. And she really didn't like one of my answers because I told her, I said, what we need to do is we need to enact stricter penalties on those that break the law with a firearm. And she said that wasn't proactive, that was reactive. But she didn't like the fact that I came back and stated that a majority of the recidivism from people getting out of jail are returned to jail because of gun crimes. So we need to enact stricter penalties on those that want to use a firearm for evil instead of good. Anyway, that's going to be the new segment I call Dickie's Corner. It might show up here and there, depending on how I feel, how Senator Durbin has been displaying his anti-gun rhetoric on Twitter. It might make multiple appearances in one video. I don't know. We'll find out. But with all that, I want to say thank you guys for watching. It's been another great episode. Again, if you like what you see, like, subscribe, let your friends know. Follow me on Twitter, Patriot. Follow me on Instagram, GunLovingPatriot. Or you can email me if you like to. If you want to have conversation, if you have questions, anything you want to talk about, you can email me at gunlovingpatriot1@gmail.com. I'll be available at all those locations. If you want, you can talk. If not, if you just want to say hi, I'll respond back. To our military, I salute you. To our law enforcement, be safe out there. To everybody else, thank you for watching. Bye.